No, that is bad. Well,
Yes,
okay, it's gonna end
yes.
pretty quickly. I'll keep.
Yeah, I mean, we know this deck is not one for faffing about.
Greetings, everyone. Sorry for the choppy video intro. Apparently Windows Movie Maker kind of sucks, so bear with me. If you have any suggestions on better free video editing software, please leave your recommendation in the comment section. But for now, we have a game on our hands, so let's get down to it immediately. I'm playing Temujin Kate with Patron for maximum synergy up against Montreal BABW. You can check out Netrunner DB for what Montreal BABW is, but basically it's a gear check core set Wayland that uses Consulting Visit to tune out mid-seasons and the kill. Very, very dangerous if you cannot outmoney them, and you can almost be certain that it's very hard to outmoney them, even with Temujin. Temujin is an amazing card. I think you'll see me play this card a lot in every single faction. Um, because there's no reason not to. It's such a powerful economy card that it's almost always worth the 2 influence. So I'm just going to, I mean, it's the new Lucky Find basically, and it's a lot better. So I'm just gonna hit Temujin a lot. This will ensure that I stay afloat of BABW's credits, which is pretty important, and force the ice install on the remote, which is always nice. Now, I have an SMC here, and so I'm going to use it to poke the remote, the archives, and I'm going to see Enigma. So I really want to get my Temujin credits, so I'm going to bring something out. Not the Gordian Blade, but the Atman. The reason I'm doing Atman over Gordian Blade is because I know that BABW runs a lot of gear check ice, so sooner or later an Atman Zero will be really nice. Not only does it allow me to get basically allows me to get through the gear check ice without having to worry about another layer of gear check. But in retrospect, that's probably not a good idea because I do have another SMC and a clone chip in my hand, so there's no reason for me to panic and grab the Atman this early. I could easily have gone for the Guardian, and I think I should. So that was a small mistake. Because of this, I did not check the remote, and my opponent scored an Atlas. Now, letting Wayland score the Atlas is not a big deal as long as it's not over advanced. It's not an Astro script, it's no Nisei. It's pretty useless, come to think of it. This BABW deck is not very good at scoring out because by the time it gets to 4 or 5 agenda points, it finds it very difficult to pump out the last few agenda points because the runner typically has the remote lock. So what BABW really wants to do is this: get an Oaktown going to boost up the money. So I'm on 14 credits, my opponent's 13 now. It's pretty marginal, our credit difference. So the mid-seasons is not going to be very impactful. That is my aim here, trying to make it unimpactful. Now I hit an Enigma on HQ, and this is where I really wish I brought out the Guardian instead. That would have been so much better. Instead, I'm forced out with 1 click lost, and now I have to poke on R&D to see a Bailiff. This is why I brought out the Artman Zero, right? In conjunction with Data Sucker, you can get a lot of mileage out of the Artman, and I find an Oaktown renovation that I'm going to steal, so that makes up for the fact that I can't contest the Oaktown remote this turn. One reason I did not run the Oaktown remote is that I was almost certain that there was an archer on that remote, which is why my opponent was trying to score the Atlas. I think it's pretty obvious, if you didn't notice, that my opponent did not have a hostile takeover in hand and was forced to score an Atlas in order to turn Archer on. So because of this, I'm going to ignore the remote and go for Centrals instead. I could perform an indexing here. I definitely could. I'm just really worried about the mid-seasons. In retrospect, maybe performing the indexing is the way to go. I'm definitely thinking about it right here. I'm looking at my deck here, trying to think of what counters I have to Archer, and I saw that I do have Mimic. So Mimic plus Data Sucker can actually get me through a single Archer, which is what I need to worry about. With the SMC in hand, I certainly can go for it. The problem is it worth it? I'm gonna run, I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna force the Archer res. This allows me to grab the Mimic at the cost of my Strength 0 Artman. That Strength 0 Artman is not going to be very useful now that there are 2 Enigmas on Centrals, and I do have Lady for the Bailiff anyway. Unfortunately, the innermost ice wasn't a barrier, and I got knocked out by a Quandary. Again, I removed the wrong breaker. I should have removed the Sucker or the Lady. That Artman 0 would have seen me through the remote. Unfortunately, it keeps me out, and that's a pretty watertight server because I've just spent all my Data Sucker credits. So my opponent is going to be really cheeky here. He's going to double advance the Oaktown to get money and play Snatch and Grab, leveraging on the fact that I've just spent a lot of money installing Mimic and Daily Cast and breaking the Archer. He's gonna snatch my Beth Kurain Chang. Now, Beth is an amazing resource, especially against BBW. You're almost guaranteed free click every turn. Unfortunately, she's now gone. She's dead. She was in the front lines, and uh, she didn't know what hit her, but it hit her hard, and we've lost contact with her. So now I just have to rely on Patron to get me going. But Temujin saves the day. Temujin goes on R&D, and now we get indexing. So indexing with Temujin is amazing. Usually when you index, you're making 2 runs on the server, 1 for the indexing and 1 for the access. With Temujin, that's 8 credits that you get to liberate off. So I'm looking at this R&D right now. There are no agendas, but there's a Scorched Earth, there's a Jackson Howard, and there's an Enforcing Loyalty. Enforcing Loyalty is actually pretty bad for my deck, because my opponent can snipe my Temujin. You don't want your opponent to snipe the Temujin, not one with 16 credits on it. He could also snipe my Mimic, and that could cause a lot of problems when I'm actually trying to contest his remote. He could actually viably go for a score plan. So, I need to be conscious about the Enforcing Loyalty, and that's why I buried it as the 3rd card in R&D. In retrospect, I should have put it as the top card, because Enforcing Loyalty can be trashed. I forgot about that. I should have done that. So one of the best things you can do against BBW is to actually trash their operations. If you trash their mid-seasons, or their Enforcing Loyalty, they can't actually fetch it from archives, because Consulting Visit only allows you to tutor operations from your deck. They will have to find a Jackson Howard to reshuffle the operations back into deck before they can play them. And that's another powerful part about BBW. The fact that Consulting Visit is now in faction and is a card, means that they can viably run a single copy of mid-seasons and reliably see it, because there are 4 copies of mid-seasons in their deck. 1 mid-seasons, 3 Consulting Visits equals 4 very, very big threats. I can be sure at this point that if I try to go for the Oaktown, which is 10 advanced at this point, holy cow, my opponent is playing quite well. James is doing a very good job. Can you see what he's doing here? I'll tell you. He's using the Oaktown renovation as a capital investors. Click for 2 credits every single click. And I can't steal it. I can't go trash it. It's not like capital investors. It's worse, because if I attempt to do so, he has 25 credits to my 15. Now 28. I'm getting mid-season to hell. The problem is I'm not going to outmoney him anymore. That Oaktown is insane. It is a workhorse. It is a workhorse of an economy engine for him. Much more than Temujin is for me. All I can do right now is to poke R&D for patron draw, Temujin money, and just hope for the best. I do find a sports hopper here, so that's gonna save me for a little bit. Not very much though. I'm pretty sure he runs traffics and scorches, so that sports hopper isn't gonna buy me a lot of time. It's no plus Crete, and that's one unfortunate thing. Now I know that a Jackson Howard is coming up from the indexing, so I do want to destroy it right here. Choosing the patron server is gonna be tricky. R&D is not a very palatable server at this point, because I don't run Parasite. It cost me 3 whole credits to get through the Errand Boy. Another beautiful inclusion in James's deck. It is so taxing to get through R&D. Temujin is barely paying itself off. And it's definitely not worth it going in for single accesses at this point. So really, my only game plan here is to actually score 7 points of agendas in 1 turn. Or 5 points, since I already have an Oaktown. I need to clear him in one fell swoop before he does the same to me by clearing my hand with Scorched Earths and Traffic Accident. So these are the outs that you consider when you're playing the game. I'm just gonna poke around for accesses on my early clicks. Alright, sorry, not accesses. I'm not accessing any cards here. So what I'm trying to do from here on out is that I'm trying to build up my hand, try to get good cards like indexing, which will help me see agendas. Then I'll try to snipe 3 agendas in 1 turn. Ideally, it's going to be run HQ, snatch an agenda, run the Oaktown server, snatch the Oaktown, and then go for an indexing on R&D for the win, stealing 3 agendas total during my turn before my opponent can kill me. I don't have to do it in 1 turn. I actually have a bit of grace period. I have 2 turns to do this, because I can buy 1 turn's worth of time with Sports Hopper. But for the most part, I'm on a ticking. The moment I steal an agenda, I know that I'll be hit by mid-season, so I'm on a ticking clock right here. So on click 1, you saw me run HQ. I was hoping to hit an agenda, but instead I hit a close accounts. So I can't really run on my next 3 clicks. If I do, I start the clock, the time bomb, the mid-season's time bomb, and I don't want to trigger it right here. But I do so anyway, which is probably a mistake. I guess I was trying to hit his hand. If I hit an agenda, I'll immediately swing over to the remote to kill the Oak Town. It could be a mistake, I don't know. But either way, I was pretty desperate for agendas at this point. I could actually perform an indexing. That probably would have been a better idea, especially if a whole bunch of agendas suddenly spew up from R&D. That was probably the way to go. The problem with going with R&D is that I will start expending dog tokens, and that's really bad for me. Now, not much happens during this turn. There are not many useful cards in my hand. I'm hoarding hyperdrivers in case I want to take a mega turn, but it's very unlikely judging by the number of programs I already have installed. And this is one problem with hyperdriver. Anyway, I'm just going to poke around and see if I can fetch any agendas. If I can, I'll swing straight over to Oaktown and start stealing points. But I failed to do so, so I pass over the turn to my opponent, who then finally scores the Oaktown. Convinced that I cannot outmoney him anymore, he goes in for the score, or at least attempting to force me to run his remote. This game has really gone on a lot longer than the typical Montreal BW games go. Usually Montreal BABW just wins in the or loses in a matter of 5 turns. Alright, so knowing that I cannot afford to give him an Atlas or Global Food here, I storm the remote and steal the posted bounty. So I was actually quite happy to see that, because if he scored the posted bounty, I could be in a world of hurt. You really don't want to give them the ability to tag you and scorch you. So, time to assault centrals. Oh, and also he could close my accounts. That would have been pretty bad. Anyway, I start poking around in HQ and I do sniff out the global food. So this is exactly what I want. I start the ticking time bomb right here, and I would die. I would die to traffic scorch. But because I have the sports hopper out, I can buy myself one more turn to find the final agenda to win before flatlining to death. Now here I trigger the sports hopper. Normally, you don't trigger the sports hopper until they play traffic or scorched. My opponent, James, was questioning my move as well. The reason I triggered it at that point was because I had 2 indexings in hand and I knew that was my win condition. So I needed to pad my hand with cards before going for the indexing. If I let him play Scorched Earth on me and it snipes both of my indexings, I cannot win. So I'm going to index here. By buying myself a turn, I find no winning agenda. I see an Enforcing Loyalty, 2 Restructures, and 2 Burn Your House Down cards. I lose. It's simple as that. The best thing I can do right here, knowing that I'm going to die next turn, is to hit his hand 3 times. I'm not sure why I didn't do this. Why? Because I'm going to let him fire Errand Boy to draw cards. Yeah, this is very questionable. The reason behind doing this is that I want to index him and then hopefully get a fresh indexing off so that I can steal the winning agenda. But with no dog tokens left, there was no way I was going to do this. So at this point, I was just going to index to bury the Scorched Earths. So this was definitely a misplay. What I should have done was to run his hand 3 times after triggering Errand Boy. So that was a gameplay mistake. I was 1 click away from winning the game. There was a Project Atlas on the top of R&D. If I had Beth Currain Chang with me, I wouldn't have succumbed to this fate. Well, what a game. What a game. So all in all, that was a pretty beautiful game. Both of us were dancing around. My opponent was dancing with fire with their Oak Town and trying to burn my house down, while I was dancing around trying to get Patron and Temujin procs and trying to get the Best Breaker Suite up. It was actually quite fun. So, regarding my deck, it's probably not tuned and it could be a lot better, but I really like the synergy between Patron, Data Sucker, and Temujin. The Data Suckers didn't really come into play this game, but otherwise it seems like a pretty solid combo, especially with indexing. Indexing with Temujin makes it so much easier to recuperate your credit levels. If you're looking for a truly competitive Shaper Temujin deck, however, I think you do have to run Parasite with clone chips. Oh man, the thought of that just makes me shiver. It would have done a lot of work this game for sure. Well, thanks for watching, happy net running, see you around.